Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healthcare Marketing Executive. I'm Saul Marquez, and I'm really excited to host another episode here of the podcast where we talk to some of the brightest minds in healthcare. Today, I have the privilege of hosting Kate Karlsson. She is the founder and CEO of Systole Media. Kate, it's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Definitely looking forward to our chat. Kate and I have been in touch over the past few years through LinkedIn. And very recently, we put out the last few articles on our newsletter on PR and how it's a GTM engine. And she had some really insightful comments. I'm like, Kate, we got to get you back on the podcast. So I'm glad you're here.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So Kate, tell us your story. Before you started your PR and comms company, you were a nurse. Talk to us about your journey and what brought you to healthcare and also marketing.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I actually spent almost a decade as an ICU nurse working all over the US and including during the pandemic. Oh. And like many people in 2021, I was super burned out and I knew that I needed to make a career change. So initially I started working as a freelance medical writer and did that for a few years. And through that, I started working alongside PR firms on a lot of healthcare accounts. But one thing I kept noticing was that they were often missing some of the insider knowledge of healthcare. And it just kept occurring to me that someone with healthcare experience like me could do what they were doing and bring an edge and bring something that they couldn't. So that kind of prompted me just to diving headfirst into learning everything I could about PR. And then eventually starting my own healthcare PR firm, Systole Media. And the name too, if you don't know, so the word systole is the contraction phase of the heart. And so it comes from the time I spent as a cardiac ICU nurse.
Oh,
and
that's
so the contraction phase of the heart, it
Love
pushes
that.
the blood through the body. And I kind of thought that it was the same idea for communications and PR, which is those are the things that are actively pushing out your message and pushing out your story out into the world. So yeah, that's where it comes from.
I love that. That's so creative. I love the reference and it's at the heart of it.
Yeah, exactly right. No pun intended.
And so you've got to tell me, so you're in New Zealand. How did that happen?
Yeah, this is a very long story, but long story short, my husband is from Sweden, but he's also an Australian citizen. And when we met, the first few years of our relationship, we were just kind of traveling all over the world. But eventually we got kind of tired of traveling and wanted to settle down somewhere. But we were still dating at that point, and it's difficult to find somewhere for two people to settle down when you're from different countries and you're not married.
Yeah.
So we decided to try out Australia for a few years. And then eventually I missed the mountains and I missed skiing. And so we kind of felt like New Zealand was a better fit. So we moved here 8 months ago and it's been incredible.
So cool.
If you haven't visited, I highly recommend. It's awesome.
It's on my list. Haven't been. I love your story. And then we'll have to visit you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Open invite.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks for sharing, Kate. It's always good to hear the stories, the people behind the marketing. If you had to call out one of the biggest misconceptions people have about healthcare marketing, what would you say it is?
Yeah, this is something I see a lot actually, is working with marketers who are coming into healthcare from different industries and then thinking that the same marketing tactics that worked in other industries are going to work in healthcare. And I think we both know that is just not the case. Healthcare is not an industry where you can just throw up some Google ads or just start posting regularly on LinkedIn and expect that alone to get a product into a hospital. Healthcare is different. It's built on trust and relationships, and it has longer sales cycles than, most people are used to. And I think that can be really jarring for people who aren't expecting how different it is.
Yeah, I love that. I agree 100%. And that's true from the marketing perspective, but also as tech companies try to get in and try to disrupt, then they get rudely awoken.
So true. Yes, so true. I mean, we've seen that over and over again. Yeah.
Over and over again. Well, we've been on this PR kick with a lot of our latest reports and newsletters, and this is at the heart of what you do. How do you measure success, and how are you talking to clients about success measurement in the PR space?
I think the way that I think about this I actually didn't quite realize this initially, but it harkens back to something I learned in nursing school, which was before you give a medication, you go through the rites of medication administration. So you make sure it's the right medication, the right patient, the right dose, the right time. And so I look at what I do in a similar way. So
Mm.
I'm less focused on how many impressions or clicks did this press release get. And I'm more asking, was it the right message for the right audience? Was it delivered in the right place at the right time? And also, like, was it the message received in the way we intended? And if
Mm.
not, what can we do better next time? Like, how can we change our messaging to appeal in the way that we want to? So, yeah, that's how I look at it.
I love it. You got to say the right things to the right people at the right time.
Mhm.
I'm with you 100%. And what has been an example and maybe a campaign or something that you've done recently that you feel has made this philosophy pay off?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think right now, kind of as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of tech companies who are coming into healthcare and maybe not approaching things the best is how we'd say. So I think
Okay.
first I'll start with an example of how this has not been done correctly.
Okay.
One example is if you've heard about all the stuff around an AI nurse, like there were a lot of tech companies that were coming in and saying like, hey, here's our new AI nurse. It charges $9 an hour. And I mean, it was just a really bad tactic from the beginning where it immediately puts the hackles up on clinicians. I mean, it
Yeah.
clearly states just in those two words, like, our technology is coming for your job. So obviously clinicians aren't going to embrace it with open arms. So I think like really the question that we need to think about and focus on more is like how to communicate with clinicians and the people that are going to be using this technology in a way that acknowledges their skepticism and them being wary, because they do have reason to be wary. How can we, while still being truthful, like make it clear that this product was designed with clinicians or this technology is flexible and that it can flex with like your individual hospital or your individual unit. I think just thinking more about the clinician in that is really important.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you calling that out. We got to be thoughtful about that and measuring success based off of your ICP, your persona. Are you using their language? All these things really matter. So, love what you're saying here. I think for me, I like to think about the things that help communicate these things, not just to the end customer. Oftentimes it's B2B, but the patient. What's
Yeah,
one thing you would change about that?
it's really important to meet patients and clinicians where they're at and kind of what you said earlier, to speak their language. Approaching patients not with a bunch of medical jargon that they're not going to understand, but really meeting them with where their understanding is at and making sure they understand what you're saying. And really, the same is true for clinicians. When you're communicating with clinicians, they can tell within seconds whether you actually understand their world. It's as simple as being familiar with their lingo.
Hmm.
And I think kind of a funny example of this was recently we were writing up a document for clinicians and it was going to be in front of clinicians. And we were talking about the cath lab. So the cath lab is where patients have like stents placed.
Hmm.
And someone on our team who doesn't have a healthcare background were editing the document and they were like, shouldn't this be catheterization laboratory instead of cath lab? And I just thought that was really funny because I was like, do not change it to catheterization laboratory because that would be a dead giveaway from the very beginning that
Oh
this was
my
not written
God.
by a clinician. No one calls it that. It's called the cath lab. And it's kind of a silly example, but it's like, if you can't get the lingo right, like why would anyone trust you to get the product right? So that's kind of what I think about with everything that I do.
I love that. And there's a lot of these things that could be dead giveaways that you're an outsider that honestly, it really helps. And we harp on this, Kate. And for everybody listening, if you have worked with a non healthcare focused marketing partner or agency, it literally is
Mm.
half the job catching them up and catching things like this. Like you really have to
Mhm.
be with someone that knows the language, speaks the language, knows the nuances. Otherwise, it's going to be like a second job trying to manage
So true. Yeah, so
this
true. Or just completely redoing things over and over again, Absolutely.
catheterization labs.
Exactly. It sounds weird, doesn't it? Even you know that.
It does. I'm like, what is that? Oh yeah, cath lab. Gotcha. No, that's so good, Kate. I love it. I'm glad you went there. Lingo is important. Look, this part of the podcast is where we ask you a question from one of our previous guests, Kate. And this question comes from Ankit Shah. He is the VP of marketing at Setpoint Medical. And he asked, what is the discussion around healthcare marketing we're not having in 2026?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think the thing is like the question that we're not having enough of is, again, it's kind of what we talked about earlier. Like, is the technology being designed with the input of the people who will be using it? And that's true for patients and that's true for clinicians. And it's like some of this stuff can be fixed with careful messaging and approaching it in the right way. But really, it goes back even further to like how these things are being designed, building with the people who are going to be using these things. Because once you get to the end, once you get to the marketing and the messaging, like that can only do so much to close that distance. I mean, so that's something I always advise where possible. Like, have you talked to end users? Do you have some end users on your team? Is there flexibility built into the technology so that it can be adaptable? What's resonating? What's not? So yeah, that's what I'd say.
I love it. Yeah, that's a great call out, right? We tend to focus a lot on downstream marketing on the show, but upstream marketing, are you getting voice of customer on your product roadmap? Whether it's a device or software or even a service, are you getting feedback from your clients or your patients to make sure it is what's going to be most useful to them? Love that so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks for that, Kate. Great response on that one. What question would you leave for our next marketing leader?
Ooh. I think I would ask, I'm going to be really curious to see what they say, is what is something that you think the industry needs to communicate about more honestly right now? So that's loaded. We'll see. We'll see what people say.
I like that. I like that. More honestly. What do you guys think about? You're listening to this podcast. What could we be communicating more honestly about right now? Share that with us, whether it be on social or you reach out to us. We want to know from you. Obviously, we'll ask this question to our next guest on the podcast. Kate, thank you so much for joining us. What call to action would you leave our listeners and viewers with? And where can they reach out to you if they want to learn more about your work?
Yeah. So I think LinkedIn is probably the best place for people to find me. So Kate Karlsson, or my website, systolemedia.com. In terms of call to action, like I post a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, like drawing attention to things that I think are really important. One of which is like the invisibility of nurses in the media. So nurses, despite being 50% of the global workforce, are only cited in healthcare news 2% of the time, which is just crazy. Such a big workforce is so invisible. Low. So that's something that on LinkedIn, I have an initiative called Nurses to the Mic that I'm really trying to get more nurses in front of journalists and to really get their voices out there. So I say follow along. If you're a clinician, like jump in and yeah.
That's awesome, Kate. I love that initiative, Nurses to the Mic. Let's get more nurses on that media mic. I think it's an awesome initiative. We'll make sure to follow that, Kate, and we'll post ways to get in touch with you on the show notes. And whatever we can do to support that initiative you have, please let us know because we're all about nurses at Outcomes Rock.
For sure. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, our pleasure. This has been such an opportunity. Kate, thank you so much for chiming in on that newsletter, for being with us today. And folks, what an awesome opportunity to connect with Kate Karlsson. She is the founder and CEO of Systole Media. Just an incredible person. Make sure you connect with her to learn more. Kate, thanks for being with us.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.